Ah, bugger. You ever had that happen? You put your rod on the side of your vehicle and it just falls over? If only there was a way to keep that from happening. Well, there is. Low magnetic clips. We're going to make some today, so stay tuned. Alright, so we're back in the shop working on the clip, and the other day I went ahead and did my glue up like this. It's pretty simple. It's just 2 pieces of white oak and a piece of black walnut, about a 1/4 inch thick each, to make a 3/4 inch block. Now, if you don't want to do a glue up, that's fine. You can go and get a 3/4 inch piece of material and not have to do any planing or anything to it. So this size doesn't really matter as you're doing the glue up, as long as it's big enough to get a 2 1/4 by 1 inch piece out of it at the end. So now we're going to do that, which means moving over to the table saw. So let's do that. Now, so this first cut dimensionally doesn't really matter. All we want to do is square up this rough edge right here. So we're just setting the blade far enough in to make sure we take off all the material from this edge to give us a good clean surface to start with. Alright, so we got our fresh cut edge that we just cut. The next thing we want to do is move our fence over to where there's a 1 inch gap between the blade and the fence. Take the smooth end, put that against the fence, and then we can rip our piece down to 1 inch. Alright, so the first cut here is just going to be to square up this corner, so I'm going to take off just a bare minimum. Alright, so the next step is to make a 3/4 inch hole that is a 1/4 inch up from the bottom and centered on the piece. So, because I'm making multiples of these, I did my measurements on one board, like so, and then set up some stop blocks on my drill press so I can take one measurement and drill them all at once. Now, to finish, I'm going to use a 3/4 inch Forester bit. But I like to do a pre-drill first, so I'm going to use an 1/8 inch bit to pre-drill all these. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alrighty, so before I drill this, a few things to note. Notice I added an extra clamp just because of how small this piece is and the size of this bit. I didn't want my fingers that close to it. And importantly, there's a sacrificial piece underneath it. That helps to prevent tear out at the bottom to keep everything nice and clean. So let's go ahead and drill this. Next task is just going to be cut off these little tabs right here just to make this tangent nice and smooth. So I've got a bandsaw, so that's what I'm going to use. So let's get to it. And there you go. A little bit of sanding and that'll be nice and smooth. Alrighty, so the next step is to put a 1/2 inch by 1/8 inch deep hole right in the center of each one of these tabs. So I got it marked out, and like I did before, I've got stop blocks set up on my drill press, and I've got my depth. You can't see that, it's up there. Depth's already set, so all I have to do is turn it on and drill some holes. So that's what we're going to do. Alright, so the next step I want to do is put a chamfer on all these corners, like this one, just a nice little 1/8 inch chamfer, and I'm going to do that here on the router table. So I'm going to get to that spinning wheel of doom right there to make this look like this, and we're going to do that now. So our next step involves drilling a 5/32 hole right there that's 3/16 of an inch away from the edge of the chamfer. It's going to run right down through there. So like before on the drill press, we've got stop blocks set up. This one's set at 45 degrees. So all I have to do is set my block in. I can just drill all of mine under one measurement. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. If my arm gets in the way, I'm sorry, but the drill handle's over here and this is really the best angle. So time to start drilling. There we go. Alright guys, well now that we've got the blocks cut out and the holes drilled, the next step is to sand. I don't think you want to watch me sand all these. So I'll just tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with some 120, then move to some 220, and that's about all the sanding that I'm going to do on these. After I get done with that, we'll get to the next step. So I will see you then. Whew! Alrighty, now that all that sanding's done, yeah, that's our favorite part of woodworking, isn't it? The sanding. Not really. Alright, so here they are all sanded. You can see that I masked off the bottom feet. The reason for that is we're going to be gluing stuff to it later, and we want the glue to actually penetrate into the pores of the wood, not onto the lacquer that we're going to be coating it with. So, we got some spray on lacquer. Again, this is something I had laying around. I'm using this because it's got a nice quick dry time, and it allows me to keep this to be a one-day project. So, well, actually 2 days because I did glue up the other. Whatever. Yeah, I'm going to spray on some lacquer now, so let's get to that. That's pretty much all there is to it. You guys don't need to see much more of this, do you? Alrighty then, well, now that the lacquer is dry, went ahead and removed the masking from the bottom. And now it's time to glue in the magnets. So the magnets that we're using are just some neodymium magnets. I think these came from either Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I don't know, one of those guys. And we're just gonna stick them in there with some good old 5-minute epoxy. So let's do that now. Ooh, crazy hands. Alright, so now that our magnets are set in place with the epoxy, we need to glue on a little bit of felt onto the feet like so. And use some super glue for that. So we're just going to take some rough cut pads, glue them on, then come back through and trim them out. So the felt's just there to protect the vehicle's paint, and it also helps to protect these magnets, because if you hit them hard enough they'll crack and do bad things. So let's start gluing on some felt. Alright, so now that the felt is glued on, the glue is set, it's time to take a knife and just trim it up. So if I get in the way, I'm sorry, but you'll see what happens. And there we go, all trimmed up. Alrighty, so the magnets are in, the felt's on. The very last step is to put the keychain on. These came from Michael's, maybe? Could have been Hobby Lobby, I don't know, I've had them for like a year. Again, they were bought for another project, and I just have extras laying around. So we're using these. Now, they are split ring, so it's gonna be interesting. Yeah. So I'm going to go fumble through that right now. So here's the fun part of split rings. Get that spread out enough. Get in there. Wow, that actually went pretty easily. I sized that just right. I'll take off some more. There we go. Alrighty, well those split rings went on a lot easier than I thought they would. Well guys, here you go. A nice little key ring magnetic rod clip. Yes, it sticks to metal. By the way, if you have a Ford, this might not work for you. They're aluminum. You need iron in the middle for this to work. Well guys, that's all I got for you in this one. I hope that you found this informative and it inspired you to go out and build something. Don't forget, Father's Day isn't that far away, and these little guys would make some interesting little gifts or also some fun father-son projects. Hey guys, as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye! Oh hey, and by the way, I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I recently hit 500. I wasn't quite sure that was going to happen. So thanks guys. Now this time, for real, bye!